Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Tuesday. It is the 5th day of April, 2022. I hope you're all safe and healthy today. I hope that you and your family, in fact, are safe and healthy, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field and those that are the first responders, who every day have the purpose and aim to save lives. Blessings upon those that pick up garbage for us to keep streets and sidewalks and highways clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings upon the men and women who are trying to rescue and deliver and help the victims of child molestation and pedophilia, the victims of sex slavery and human trafficking, prostitution and child prostitution, pornography, child pornography, and are trying to prosecute and bring to justice the perpetrators, profiteers, and perverts who traffic and get pleasure in human misery and suffering. Blessings upon those trying to bring these to justice and rescue the innocents. Blessings upon the innocents, and double curses on those perverts, profiteers, and profiteers and perverts, profiteers, the perverts, profiteers, and perpetrators. Finally, blessings upon the homeless. Nearly 600,000 men, women, and children in the United States of America today on April the 5th on the streets, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions, and blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. So today I want to discuss Dyson Daniels, and got to give a shout out to my man H Money. A lot of you guys were asking me to look at Dyson Daniels, and to be quite honest, I probably would not have looked at him if you guys hadn't prompted me. You guys, I get every day, look at this one, look at that one, from fans, and I briefly look at some of them and make a quick decision as to whether I'm going to spend my time looking at them. But Dyson Daniels has a lot of fans in Knicks Nation. And so, Money was the last one of the last ones to push, look at Dyson Daniels, look at Dyson Daniels. So I took a look at him. So we're going to talk about him in a minute, but I wanted to touch base on our beloved New York Knicks first before we got into Dyson Daniels. Now, there's been enough negative news from me. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to talk about nobody else, but from me, there's been enough negative news about the Knicks this year, between Tom Thibodeau's archaic coaching style, between Leon Rose's signing of veterans that don't fit, and veterans being Tom Thibodeau's kryptonite, as well as, the point guard circus and such, and the disappointing record that the Knicks had. I want to also be fair and balanced as I can, because there is some positives, and we can build on the positives as well. In fact, how the Knicks go forward into next season and beyond is dependent on, one of the ways is dependent on, is how Leon Rose and the front office build on the positives, along with, if Tom Thibodeau is the coach, along with him, how they build on the positives. Okay. So I wanted to, there's really, for me, there was one key statistic that I used this year to determine that the Knicks could win 50 games, and to determine that they could have been in the top 6. And this same statistic, as it turned out, shows us why they're not. And going forward, it's a key statistic in my view that's going to show us what they can go do going forward. And that is the differential between the points per game and that they score and the points per game they give up. So last year, the Knicks were number 1 in defense last year on several categories. And so based on the Thibodeau style of defense, now, again, He is archaic offensively. He has really a poor judgment in terms of rotation. I think we can agree on that. But defensively, as a defensive coach, Tom Thibodeau is elite as a defensive coach. So I can't take that from him. He's been that way. He cut his teeth in the league as a defensive coach, and he's been that way even at his 2 stops in Chicago and Minnesota, and here in New York again last year. They were the number 1 defense. So defensively, he changes because the defense has changed over the years in terms of the NBA level of defense, in terms of what's allowed, because of, now they're giving much more room to the offensive player at this point, and they're much less physical on the defensive end than they used to be, obviously, in the early 2000s, the 90s. They're much more physical. They were much more physical then. It was a physical game. The refs let them get away with a lot more in terms of physicality. Whereas now the game on the defensive end is about length, and it's about speed and quickness. The athleticism is really necessary on the defensive end. Most people, in this modern generation, when they think of athleticism, they're thinking offensively. But really, if you're going to use athleticism in the most functional manner, not just to do a 360 dunk or be an Obi Toppin and win the dunk contest. No. That athleticism is utilized to the highest level on the defensive end because of the fact that you cannot be as physical. You have to be able to get from one spot to another very quickly. You have to recognize on an IQ level where you're supposed to be very quickly on defense, because in the NBA, unlike any league of basketball in the world, the NBA offensive game is fast. It moves very quickly. Plays develop very quickly. And if you're not aware and athletic enough or have the high IQ enough to know what's about to happen, you're going to get beat and you're going to look bad in the NBA. Okay. And everybody does at some point because of the speed and athleticism. So you have to be able to have the IQ to anticipate what the offensive team is going to do or trying to do. You have to have the speed and quickness to get from point A to point B and back, within split seconds. If you have length, it's good to have length so that you can be a tremendous distraction to shooters. Okay. And also recover, on the defensive end, maybe block a shot or, alter a shot. And so if you can have 5 guys, and Thibodeau talks about this, guys, and this is true, defensive teams on the high level defensive teams as teams in the NBA are on a string. So in other words, it's almost like you have 5 guys and they're on one string and they're moving like an amoeba and they're moving very fast from one side of the court to the other. And they're switching and getting back and switching and getting back and switching and getting back, doubling and getting back. And that is the hallmark of an elite defensive team. Now, I expected the Knicks to have a differential coming into the season of between 3 and 6. In other words, I expected them to outscore their opponents, but an average of either between 3 points a game and 6 points a game. If you look at the top tier teams in both conferences of the NBA, that's generally the case. They outscore their opponents. Well, first of all, in the play-in and playoff teams of the East, only one team is not plus, and that's Charlotte, and they're at 0. Okay. All of the teams are plus on the differential. So in other words, like the top team, the Miami Heat, they outscore their opponents by 4 points a game. Boston outscored their opponents by 7 points a game. And they're making a tremendous run. As we know, Boston's probably one of the hottest teams in the league right now. And so, that is what I believe. That's why I really am more of a defensive minded fan, because from my own experience, from coaches that have coached me and from the coaches I've admired and from Knicks coaches of the past, I've really been trained to admire, to appreciate defense. And so I always feel like a great defensive team is always going to be in the hunt in the playoffs, always going to be in every game. And really, at that point, that's your foundation. You can build on that offensively and then, push for a high level of success in the NBA. So this year, though, with all that going on, and let's think about all that going on. So Kemba Walker was the starting point guard for half the season, literally, and played on one leg. And I'm not downing Kemba Walker, but you cannot play in the NBA on one leg, okay? And so that was a defensive liability. Evan Fournier from the beginning, lack of athleticism, slow foot, caused him to be a defensive liability. The lack of consistent effort from Julius Randle, who has a high level of athleticism, but mentally he checks out, obviously we know, and he's very inconsistent on effort, just plain effort. And that's what always bothered me about him. He had me change my mind last year because he put consistent effort in last year, and it showed in our record. But this year he reverted back to what caused me to not like him as a player prior to him coming to New York. And now, because he does not give a consistent effort on the defensive end. And so with all of that, the Knicks are negative 0.4. Okay. In fact, of all the teams not in the play-in, they have the best differential of all the teams not in the play-in. If they were in the West, the Knicks right now, if they were in the West, they'd be between the 8th seed and the 9th seed right now. They'd be a solid 9th seed right now. They were in the West. So 0.4 is very close. And that's with everything I just said. They're very close to being a playoff type of team, in spite of all of the negative that has happened. So that gives you a different perspective on the possibilities. Now, when you understand, and one of the reasons they really are that low, that's a good number for a losing team, I'm saying, is because of the number of games that the Knicks have had. Now we've given up too many points many times. Obviously we would be in the 12th spot in the draft if we hadn't. But there's been a number of games this year that the Knicks have given up, less than 100 points, a lot of times less than 90 points, even times less than 80 points in a game. Okay. So those are what are the type of games that give us the hope. Now, the interesting thing about those games where they give up less points, those are all games where our young players played minutes. When the starting five is depended on, they give up too many points generally. Okay. They just do. Both Kemba Walker and Alec Burks. So in spite of Thibodeau's, I don't want to know what you want to call it, but the game he's pushing about, he like Alec Burks, he's the best option we got at point guard. It's just flatly untrue. And yes, Burks is 6'6", but that hasn't helped us on the defensive end. Burks last year, think about this. Last year on the best defensive unit in the NBA out of a 10-man rotation, Burks was the worst defender. Elfrid Payton was better defender. Obviously Reggie Bullock was better defender. As I said, Julius was using his athleticism and effort on a consistent basis. Obviously we had Mitch Robb and Nerlens Noel. RJ Barrett at least is a willing defender and better than Burks. He was the worst defender in the rotation last year. And so now to tell you how bad it was, he was one of the better defenders. And he improved slightly under Thibodeau as a defender. He did. But he's by no means an elite defender. The two guards, to me, of course, Deuce and IQ are better defenders to me than Burks is. They're not veteran, players. But Burks' strong suit, I've always said, is as a wing off the bench and his fourth quarter exploit. He's really a playoff. He's built for the playoffs. That's the kind of guy you need to contribute to a playoff team off the bench as a wing. Okay, that's Burks' strong suit. So he's been playing out of position the whole season thanks to Thibodeau. And of course, because of Thibodeau, not getting too negative, but hurting the development of our point guards that we really have, our young point guard. So with all of that, they're only 0.4. So now if you bring forth Cam Reddish, who I've always thought, has the athleticism to be a tremendous defender. And he was showing that this year. In fact, how did he get hurt? He was coming back to help defense and he was trying to block a shot, and that's how he hurt himself. But He's obviously giving the effort on the defensive end. He obviously has the talent and the athletic ability to play and the wingspan to play high level defense. And then of course, offensively, I always feel, and I still feel, he's got number one option talent on the offensive side of the basketball. So that's why I'm very high on Cam. I've been high on him coming out of Duke, but I think this next year is going to really, because it's a contract year. The management got him for a reason. And I think that Leon and them are going to set the roster up so that Cam is in the rotation, and that's going to be good. So you have him. RJ is really, he went through baptism by fire this year purposely. He asked for it so that he could learn NBA level defense. Okay. Grimes, obviously. Deuce, obviously. Strong defenders. All right. And then Obi has come a tremendous way defensively to the point where you had Clyde Frazier, my man Clyde, my favorite Knick of all time, criticizing Obi because he couldn't stay with a point guard. Because why? Why was he doing that? Because he expected him to be able to stay with the point guard. Why would he expect that? Because Obi has shown that already this year. He has improved that much on the defensive end that we no longer expect him to be a defensive liability, but a plus. And that's really saying a lot about how hard Obi Toppin has worked. I'm expecting him to be in the starting lineup next year. Of course, we have to. The Knicks are really under pressure to re-sign Mitchell Robinson. Now, with regard to Mitch Rob, so the picture's getting clearer now that we're hearing all the reports. So he's an unrestricted free agent, but the Knicks are the only team that can offer him a fifth season. Okay. They can offer him 5 years on their contract. No other team could do that. Now, that might be meaningless in the sense that Leon is not offering anybody a 5-year deal, and you can't blame him. Hardly anybody's getting 5-year deals around the league this year, right now. It's just not in vogue. People are not investing long term like that. So a 4-year deal of whatever he is being offered, Leon can match it. Now, the danger here is twofold. There's twofold danger. First danger is, in his mind, has Mitchell Robinson decided, I want to live in another city, like Dallas? Has he decided that already in his mind? We don't know. Has he made that decision? I don't really want to live in New York City. I like Dallas better, or I like this, or this, whatever city. I like it better than New York. So I want to go there. If that's the case, it doesn't matter. If that team offers him anywhere near what he feels he's worth, he's going to go. I don't know if that's what he's thinking, but that's part of the issue, right? So we don't know if he really wants. I kind of feel, just based on him being with the Knicks for 4 seasons, that he has to have some affinity to New York. I don't think he hates being in New York. I think he kind of likes it, actually. Just his, his jovial personality, his demeanor, and of course how he gets along with his teammates. I think he really likes it. So it brings me to 2. If a team wants to poison pill the Knicks, they could do it. What do I mean by that? The Knicks did it with Tim Hardaway Jr. So Atlanta, the Knicks had traded, Phil Jackson had traded Tim Hardaway Jr. to Atlanta after the Knicks drafted him. After the Knicks under Woodson had drafted him. They traded him to Atlanta. So now, Atlanta had a successful season with Tim Hardaway coming off the bench the year that they traded for him. He was there like 2 seasons at least, and he improved each season. So they were planning to re-sign him when he became a free agent. He was a restricted free agent. They planned on re-signing him for around $60 million. Okay, which is a good number. I mean, especially then, that was a good number. But Steve Mills really wanted Tim Hardaway Jr. back and never wanted him to be traded. So what did he do? He signed him to a $72 million deal with a trade kicker in it. Okay. 15% trade kicker. So that blew Atlanta out the water because Atlanta didn't want to overpay, for Hardaway. And they had other players they had to deal with at that time on contracts, but they didn't want to overpay. They hadn't planned on overpaying. And so the Knicks put that in. That's what I call a poison pill. In other words, you overpay, you put a stuff like a trade kicker. So when Tim Hardaway gets traded, there's another 15% coming to him. And so that's what I call a poison pill. In other words, you have to want him really bad to outbid that, right? Well, if a team wants Mitchell Robinson that bad, they can do that, right? So they can say, all right, we're going to give you, what they talking, 4 years, $56 million? We can give you 4 years, $72 million with a 15% trade kicker. That's it. He'd be gone then. That's it. And you can't blame him. I don't care if it's Oshkosh. I don't care if it's on a desert somewhere. If they paying you 4 years, $72 million with a 15% trade kicker, you wearing the uniform. Okay? That's the two problems. If he doesn't want New York anymore, and if somebody puts the poison pill out there. That's it. Okay? Now, other than that, other than those two scenarios, and I really, to be quite honest with you, I don't see the second scenario coming to pass. But you just never know in the NBA. But today, the GMs and the owners are much more cost conscious than in the past. At the time that Mills signed Tim Hardaway Jr. to that poison pill. It's happened to a number of players that have done that. I mean, a number of teams have done that to make sure they get the player that they want. It's happened a number of times, but that's the only thing that's concerning to me. The poison pill. So if we could keep Mitchell Robinson, and I don't mind if somebody was to offer him $60 million over 4 years, match it. Okay. Some of y'all always talking like, first of all, like it's your money. And secondly, like every player on your team is not worth the money, but every player on the other team, like people were whining about getting DeAndre Ayton, who's asking for $90 million, and Mitch Rob destroyed him when they played Phoenix. Okay. And so, everybody looking at other players and they're worth more, but your players are not. No. So if the deal here, the max they can offer him is 55.6, which is about $56 million, about 14 a year. But if some team out there offers him 60, they need to match it. Period. Just match it. And we'll bring him back. We need Mitchell Robinson. He's a championship piece. Okay. So when you have a defensive unit of Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin, RJ Barrett, let's say you're starting Emmanuel Quickly. Hopefully that's the starting point guard next year. I like Deuce to start, but I'm being realistic here. And that's Tom Thibodeau's grandson. And he's a really good player. I mean, we got gold in the draft, between him, Obi, Grimes, Deuce, we got gold in the draft. Okay. So if they start Emmanuel Quickly, I ain't gonna whine about that. So you got Emmanuel Quickly, and then you get, I want Cam starting, but if not Grimes, one of them two, you're going to have over an 82-game season. The way Tom Thibodeau plays his starters, as you know, you're going to have a tremendous defensive team. Okay, you are. And then coming off the bench, you'd have either Cam or Grimes. You'd have Deuce. You'd have D Rose. Okay, you're going to have Jericho Sims. I like Jericho coming off the bench behind Mitch Rob. You're going to have a tremendous defensive unit, period. Just period. And so that's why I have hope for the future. Now, it all depends on what the Knicks do. If they come back with Evan Fournier, that's going to be a weak link. If they come back with Julius Randle, which I very highly doubt they will. Some of y'all are talking about Julius Randle coming back and all the vets coming back. Some of y'all are deluded, man. They're not really. No, they're not doing that. There's going to be changes. Okay. And so there's 100% chance there's going to be changes. How deep those changes are, we're going to see. They're not going to trade away all of these youth unless they're getting a Donovan Mitchell, right? You talk about getting a Donovan Mitchell. Oh yeah. Okay. They're going to trade some of these youth to get that. All right. But other than that, nah. If Donovan Mitchell's not walking through that door, they're not trading these kids. And you can forget, Damian Lillard ain't coming here. I keep telling y'all, he ain't coming to New York. Don't listen to all the hype that gets you clicking. He ain't coming here. Okay? That ain't happening. Right? And he got like 2 more years at this level of play, and then you don't really want it. All right? Just be real. So, we probably going to keep what we have and get rid of some of these. We are going to get rid of some. I think Randall's one of them. He gone. So with that, we're going to improve right away. All right. Now somebody said, well, Randall's a talent. You know, he's going to be a loss. Yes, he will. But the up and down nature, the negative attitude that affects his teammates. Okay. The negative, relationship he has with the New York fan base. It'll be addition by subtraction, not on a talent level, on an emotional camaraderie, morale level. It'll be addition by subtraction. Then the Knicks when they're a tight unit, that's really important for any team. When your team is tight like that and you're trying, as RJ Barrett alluded to, RJ Barrett says a lot without saying a lot. He mentioned about a team they lost to, I forgot who it was, I think it was Memphis. They pull for each other's success. Do you remember he said that? He said, oh, they're a young team. They're very talented. And they play a good rotation of young players and they play for each other's success. They celebrate each other's success. That was to me a jab directly at Julius Randle because Julius does not do that. Okay. So, we get rid of him. We'll be much better, not talent wise, but morale wise, camaraderie wise, team wise. And I think we're going to win more games because of that, because we have the players, we have the talent. So that's the positive that it's very possible for us to beat next year. Very possible for us to be top 6. Very possible. And just based on that stat. So you telling me if you get 5 defenders and then you get at least 2 or 3 other high level elite defenders coming off your bench in your rotation next year, you can't tell me the Knicks are not going to be plus on the plus side of the plus minus as far as differential. And if they're on the plus side, if you look at the playoffs teams, the top 6 of each conference, they're all plus. All plus. Western Conference, the top team is Phoenix, plus 7.7. Second is Memphis, plus 6.2. Golden State, plus 5. And it goes on. Utah, the 6th spot, plus 5.5. The 7th spot, Minnesota, plus 3. That's a common stat to show you a playoff team. Okay. Not all the time, but I'd say good 90% of the time. And so, yeah. And I think the Knicks could get there. And so that's my hope for next season. Now, let's talk about Dyson Daniels. And again, I'm going to thank my man Money. I don't know if it's HM Money. I think it's HM Money or NH Money. I'm sorry if I'm messing up here, but he's the last one. He was the straw that broke the camel's back for all of y'all asking for Dyson Daniels. And I'm glad you did. Dyson Daniels just turned 19 last month. He has been a professional basketball player in various capacities since he was 16. Okay. So he's from Australia. So he's not like from Europe, but it's the same deal where he turned pro when he was 16. His father was a pro level NBA player and college player, but he played internationally, not in the NBA. Dyson Daniels, when he graduated high school, had offers from all the major colleges, in the United States. He could have been, in Duke or whatever he wanted to, but he decided to go to the G League after being pro since he was 16 overseas. Just like I said, just turned 19, 6'6". He looks to be about $180. From what I've saw ranges that range from 170 to 199. He's not 199. He is a miniature version of Ben Simmons. He is a tremendous, matter of fact, of all of the guys that I have looked at so far in the top 10, all the way down, to the little guys outside the top 10. He is the best perimeter defender that I have seen in this draft so far, bar none. His defense, like I said, he's like Ben Simmons. His defense, wow. I love, I get turned on by defense. This cat got me lit, man. I'm telling you. He is really good as a perimeter defender. 6'6" with long arms, and we know Tibbs loves big point guards. I wouldn't say we would start him, for the Knicks next year if they pick him, but he would definitely be in the rotation. There's no doubt. I would love to have him and Deuce coming off the bench together. Man. a defender footwork on the defensive end. You want to know what I believe is elite? Look at film of Dyson Daniels on the defensive end as far as footwork. My God, he can really play defense. Hip movements, IQ on the defensive end. This is where when you have a kid that has played professional level basketball, not in the NBA, but on a professional level, he has a more polish to his game than a kid that has just come out of the AAU circuit and, 1 year at Division I and has all kind of athleticism. That kid his game is not polished and needs maturity. There's a lot of kids like that. You're going to see a lot more now that you're seeing kids come out of high school. But when you played professionally, you have a little bit more polish to your game. He does, defensively speaking. He has it all. Length, footwork, IQ, tenacity on the defensive side of the basketball. He is elite. There's no doubt. Like Ben Simmons and like Josh Giddey, another Australian player, he's a playmaker. He's a really good playmaker. Passing the basketball, IQ wise, high level, there, but he is a terrible shooter. But that being said, this is where him and Ben Simmons differ. Daniels shoots 74% from the foul line, which tells you there's an indication that his shot can be fixed. Now, I watched his shot, and while I don't consider myself a pro-level scout by any means, his problem is so obvious. Anybody can see it. Go look at the films for yourself. Anybody can see it. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy to fix. Just because we see it what it is, and it's so obvious what it is, it's not necessarily easy to fix. But because he's only 19, if you give him a good 2 or 3 seasons, this can be fixed. Okay, he's got to work hard. He's going to need a trainer, and in the NBA, he'll get that. He'll get a shooting coach, he'll get a trainer, and he'll be able to work on it, right? So I'm going to give him 2 seasons, and I'd say you'll start to see improvements in his jump shot. What he does, which is a common problem, a lot of you who follow basketball are going to know what I'm saying. He drifts. That's what he does. So, and he drifts in all directions. So if he's shooting, generally saying when you're coming up on a jump shot, you want to land pretty much in the spot that you jumped from, right? So you should be jumping straight up, right? And then landing straight back where you came from, right? But what he does, he jumps up and he'll land here. He'll land here. He drifts this way. He drifts that way. And it doesn't have to be that much of a drift. It could be like, 6 inches to 12 inches of a drift. And you're not going to make the shot. Okay. And so that's what he does. He drifts a lot. That being the case, that's why his shot's out, but it's not broken. His hand and his elbow, perfect, technique, as far as the hand, elbow, position of his shot, but he just drifts. He drifts a lot. That's what he's going to have to work on. Okay. Cause in the NBA, I saw it when he was in the G League, the video I saw, teams start backing off him. They're going to say, oh, we don't need to guard him from there because he's not going to hit it. Right. I mean, guys like Chris Paul, I've seen Chris Paul wave guys off when he was defending because he said, that ain't going in because you can't shoot. And so they'll mess with his head and they'll let him shoot and it'll get worse, right? So he's going to have to work on his shooting. Again, only for the fact that it's not like I'm looking for him to be Stephen Curry, but I don't want people just backing off of him like we had with Elfrid Payton and them playing 4 and 5 on, when you're on offense because nobody's going to, and he's 6'6". He's a thinner, 6'6". He's not like Ben Simmons, 6'10", 240, where he can back you down in the lane. And if you try to come at him with 2 players, he's going to find the open man in a split second. And if the open man is cutting, it's going to be a layup. That's Ben Simmons. He is not that. He can do that, but he's not going to get away with it like Ben Simmons. He's not as big. So he has to develop a shot. Okay. So that's the Achilles heel. He happens to be ranked on the big board in Tankathon. He's ranked at the 12th spot. And, that's around where we're going to draft. So I have no problem, taking Dyson Daniels. You know how I am about defense, but his offense really needs work. He's going to need a lot of work. And so I can see him staying in the G League another year, but he's going to need a good coach. Like the Knicks had one, Mike Miller, when he was here, in the G League coaching. Really good development coach. I really wouldn't have minded him being the head coach, but they wanted a bigger name, I guess. But really good development coach. He needs somebody like that. He needs a good development coach to help him with his jump shot. Once he gets signed, you got to sign him. See, the thing is, like, kids are coming in the NBA for a lot of reasons. Obviously, their dream, to play in the NBA, obviously, but they need that contract, right? So you get this kid drafted in the 10 to 12, 15 range in the lottery. He's now guaranteed like $2 million or whatever. Now he's got a little bit of money in his pocket, right? So now you could work on his game. And he's got a 4-year guaranteed deal. You could work on his game. I like Dyson Daniels a lot. I like him a lot. Because of his defensive acumen, his IQ, the passing ability. And I can see that he definitely will be able to improve as a jump shooter. He's going to be able to. He's got to put the work in. Like I said, just because you could easily see the problem doesn't mean you could easily fix the problem. It's going to take a lot of hard work for him to do that. I'm hoping. I don't know anything about his work ethic. He's a young boy. So I don't know anything about his work ethic. If he has a strong work ethic and he works with a good coach, he can improve. I like him. I like him a lot. He's not the top guy on my board at that spot, but I would not cry if the Knicks drafted him at all. Okay. I like a guy like a Mathurin, Banchero, Smith. I like those guys. Give me, Jaden Ivey, Griffin. Those guys, I would still, if I had a chance to take any of those guys, I'm taking them. Okay. And then I like Tyree Eason. Now, Tyree Eason came off the bench for LSU. He really could use another year at LSU. He really could. But most kids in Tyree's position are going to come out. And the reason is he got NBA level talent. Not everybody's an NBA player. For example, 2 of the 3 Ball brothers are NBA players. I mean, when I say that, they legitimately have the ability to play in the NBA. The third brother is he's not even an NBA player. The media is using him for hype, almost like the Kardashians. Literally, he's not talented enough to play on the NBA level. Look, he couldn't even get in the rotation at UCLA. Okay. He's not an NBA player. And I hate to say, I'm not trying to stop on anybody's hopes and dreams, but there's some guys that are NBA level talent players and there's some guys that's not. Okay. LiAngelo's not an NBA player. Period. He's just not. But Tyree Eason is. He's an NBA level talent. Okay. So you can bring him, but they need the money. That's what I'm saying. So if you're Tyree Eason and your family, like Jason Tatum's family was struggling, right? Very much struggling when he was at Duke that one year. Now, it just so happened Jason Tatum was top 3, top 4 in the draft. And obviously now he's got his money. But a lot of people are in that position. They need that money. And if you're going to get a top 10 pick, a guy that's going in the top 10, he's going to get, over the 4-year period, somewhere between $25 and $30 million. So even if he does wash out in his family's situation, he's going to be in pretty good shape, right? So that's why a guy like Tyree may come in, though he could use another year, but he's talented, very talented. You got all the skills and tools you want to build around. He's going to need development, but I like Tyree Eason. He plays both sides of the basketball as well, but he is going to need some more development. Okay. Then you got, I mentioned EJ Liddell. Now, he's going to need a little bit of development. He can come in right away and play, though. He's not going to be a superstar, but he's that lunch pail. Just think of Charles Oakley. That's him. Charles Oakley with a better 3-point shot. That's EJ Liddell. Okay. Very solid player. Very fundamentally sound. Strong. Plays both sides of the basketball. Going to put in 100% effort every play, every game. That's him. I like guys like that too. So those are the competition to Dyson, right? But I don't mind Dyson. especially if we're going to actually keep our draft position and stay where we are, the 12th spot. Okay, I'm not going to cry about Dyson Daniels. Not no defensive player on that level. No way. I'm going to bring him and work with him. Okay, so that's my take on Dyson for y'all that was into Dyson. I like him. I like him, and I like him at 12. I like him at 12. Like I said, if we're able to move up in the draft, there are other players I would get before him that are either more talented or more ready to contribute right away. Like Mathurin is going to need a little development also, but he's got star potential. Obviously Jaden Ivey's got stars potential. I mean, these are guys that you're talking about. If you develop them right, they could be all stars, right? Whereas that, Daniels could be that way if he develops his own shot, but he definitely is a contributor on the defensive end right away. And some people undervalue that, especially in Knicks Nation. You don't really value defensive players the way, like myself. I'm a defensive guru type dude. I love defense. And so I hate to see poor defense. Times in the Knicks Nation, times during the year when you see me turn off the television in the third quarter, it's because I can't watch that defense no more. I just can't watch it. But if they're playing high level defense, even if they're losing, I can watch the whole game because I love defense, and you're going to be in the game all the time when you're playing high level defense. And so I'm privy to that. And so Daniels could play some daggone defense, man. That kid could play defense, man. Period. So I like him. I like him at 12. Let's see what the Knicks, what else is out there, what they looking at, but I can't see him turning away a defensive. I know Tibbs is going to push anybody that's a high level defense. That's why he was pushing for Deuce and Grimes last year. They both in college, very high level defenders. Okay. Very high level defenders. And both of them can play offense as well. Okay. Deuce just haven't had the minutes. You give Deuce the 35 minutes he was getting at University of West Virginia, you're going to see the G League type numbers. He's going to put it up because he's used to that type of playing that type. Same with Obi. I told y'all, some of y'all, he can't shoot. He can't do this. All he can do is dunk. And you're basing your judgment on what? 8 minutes a game? Come on, man. Obi was used to playing almost 40 minutes at Dayton. And in that regard, it matters. The college matters because he's used to that time. He's used to getting into a rhythm. Just like Randall. Randall knows he's going to get 35, 40 minutes, right? RJ knows. So they could come off cold, start off missing everything, but they're not worried about getting taken out. They're going to play the whole game. So they're going to be able to get in the flow. Well, that's Obi. And that's Deuce. And you got guys like that just going to need that time. And if you give them the minutes, you'll get the results. Okay? So we're going to see what happens here. But I like our chances. I like our draft position. I like the foundation we have in terms of the younger players that play two-way basketball going to next year, how we handle them. If Leon messes around and brings in some other vets this year, you're going to see some retardation of the growth. You all know that from Tibbs. If he doesn't, and he just gets draft picks and stockpiles some draft picks for the future that we can trade for a superstar once these kids grow and mature, the Knicks going to be good. They are. And we're going to see it. Anyway, you enjoy your Tuesday. Be safe out there. Shalom.